Artificial intelligence today, how AI is changing our lives and jobs. My name is Garcia. I'm Vice President of Emerging Technologies at Full Sail University. We have a great panel today of Full Sail University graduates. We have Mr. Elbert Perez. He's an immersive experiences developer at Valorem Reply. He's a company that does virtual reality, and he's and also a 2016 Full Sail University Hall of Famer, and has worked in projects like HTV Vive and Xbox One and Halo 4. And we also have Sky Zhao, one of my favorite people. She's a data scientist at BNY Mellon, that's a financial services company. She's a 2017 Full Sail University graduate, and he has worked in data science projects for Darden Restaurants, which is one of the largest restaurant owners in the country, and also at Full Sail University, where I work with her, and really looking forward to her participation. And Kris Perez is a customer engineer at Google in the area of healthcare and life sciences. And Brice graduated from Full Sail 2016, and has been with Google Cloud, but also with Deloitte and Vanderbilt University, and in the medical center side, also with NASA. And so this is a great panel today. I'm going to call each of your names and let you give you a few words of introduction. Why don't you go ahead and tell me where you are right now and what you're currently working on? I'm going to start with you, Elbert.
Yeah, so right now I'm in Seattle, Washington. So it's very nice and sunny in the summer here. So please come visit Seattle when pandemic's not here. I'm currently working on a lot of projects related to HoloLens 2. I can't specifically talk about the projects I work on because we are a consulting company. We primarily produce immersive experiences for different clients like Microsoft. And that includes HoloLens 2, or anything really related to interactive experiences that go beyond websites, kind of like creating something for you in Unity or in other experiences that require a little bit more creativity.
Thank you, Elbert. And I'm going with you now, Sky. Where are you? And what are you currently working on?
All right, thank you, Luis. Hi, everyone. My name is Sky, and I'm currently in Orlando, Florida. Actually, I live in Winter Park, right down the street from Full Sail, so it's very convenient. For those of you who don't know, BNY Mellon is actually one of the largest asset custody banks in the world. And so a lot of the things that I can talk about I have to kind of censor myself from talking about the specifics of the project. But currently I am within the organization within BNY Mellon that oversees technology project and make sure that those projects go smoothly. So I have the luck of participating in various two to three projects at a time. So it's very interesting. So some having to do with automation and some having to do with consolidating databases.
Thank you, Sky. And last but not least, Mr. Kris Perez. Where are you and what are you currently working on?
Currently in Nashville, Tennessee, the greater Nashville, Tennessee area. I've been about 4 years. Working currently with Google Cloud, subsidiary of Google, as many people may know, focusing on smart analytics and that particular cloud solution pillar. Like everyone else on the call, I have to censor myself on the specifics of everything I do, but I'll make sure I give as much information as possible without going outside those boundaries. But I focus in the healthcare life sciences vertical as a customer engineer outside of Google. That's like a sales engineer.
Thank you so much for your introductions. For those of you watching, what we're going to do is we'll go over some questions first for the first 30 minutes of our discussion. And if you have any questions for the panelists, go ahead and type them up in the comment sections in Facebook, and our team will be grabbing those and passing them to me, and I will address those in the second half hour. And so let's dive right in. So my first encounter with artificial intelligence is when I was in college, and I'm probably way older than all of you. And because this is in the 90s, almost 30 years ago. It gives you an idea how long has artificial intelligence been around. And so back then I was studying neural networks, and it was truly a pain. And the idea that we had was to have an algorithm predict what kind of music we were listening to. So we have to feed it MIDI files, which are files with MIDI notes in them to train the neural network, and in hopes that later we'll be able to predict what kind of music it was. But it took forever. I mean, we're talking about feeding the files on a Thursday and coming back Monday to see if he actually ingested everything. It was computational speed was not really there when you were, the fastest computer we had was at 486. And today I can just grab my phone and point it at a song, and it will tell me what song it is, what artist it is. And back then the only thing the neural network could do is tell me if it was close or not to what I was trained for. And now I can just do it for any kind of music. And it's not even MIDI files, it's actually out of the sound waves. So we come a very long way in 30 years. And so for you in the panel, how's AI being used in your industry? I'll start with you, Kris.
I would say, for my particular industry, underneath the smart analytics cloud solution pillar, and focusing on healthcare and life sciences. As a customer engineer, I specialize in the data analytics realm, but it's hard to get away from AI because there's a lot of overlap. And the AI ML team actually have their own solution pillar. They're different specialists, but I'm constantly bombarded with the challenges of how customers can innovate in this industry. And usually AI comes up often. So I guess one of the best examples, I would say, is contact center AI. That's a huge thing right now. As for bettering the customer experience, making the experience a little bit more intelligent. And I know that we all hate actually being on a customer service call and waiting for it to talk to an agent, but it's actually statistics shown that most individuals would prefer not to talk to an agent and have enough tools to kind of self-serve and solve the issue. So we sit down with a lot of customers who are dealing with, especially with the pandemic, is dealing with how to triage patients, how to handle these patient experiences to eliminate, I guess, the different problems that may come up if you're talking to an agent, but also helping those agents. By the time they reach the agent, they're given enough information because of AI through a chatbot or an assistant, using type of technologies like Dialogflow, and all of these things are intertwined and integrated with basically their system, the customer service system, and also Google Cloud's technology.
Kris, will you clarify, do people want to talk to a bot or do they not?
People actually prefer to have self-service tools. So it varies, where depending on the problem, if they feel like they can type in their answer and get the answer they want quickly and it actually solves the issue, I think that's becoming one of the things that I would say people are asking for, is that if it gives them enough information and it allows them to serve themselves by clicking on something and then solving it, then they can get off the call quicker.
Thank you. Sky, how's AI being used in your industry?
Oh, there's so many. So I think the thing that is most familiar with people is if you've seen credit card fraud, right? So in the banking and financial services, there's a lot of fraud detection that is done by a lot of machine learning algorithms. Most of that is really data analytics. So I really agree with Kris that one of the biggest applications of AI isn't actually robotics or building some sort of robot. It's really in the industry where you have to use these algorithms like machine learning, deep learning, and all that to solve specific problems. So I'll talk about the area that I'm focusing on right now. It's automation. And there's a specific project within our teams that we're trying to identify with internal user data. How do we identify things like swivel chairing, right? How do we say, well, swivel chairing is, say that you're looking at a screen and you're manually doing something with the data, and that shouldn't happen. So manual work. So identifying manual work needs AI, and then automating the manual work also needs AI. So there's a lot of applications there.
Thank you, Sky. And Elbert, how's AI being used in your industry?
So the cool thing about AI and what I do, which is augmented reality, virtual reality, especially in augmented reality, is machine vision. Basically having AR systems on like an Android phone or an iPhone or even a HoloLens. How do they even understand the environment? You need something like SLAM to kind of figure that out. Obviously, SLAM is used, which is simultaneous. I forgot the algorithm, but it's a point cloud system where you kind of can figure out what the depth of an area is based off various point clouds that are derived into a video. And that's a lot of information. And in order for that information to be worked on, an algorithm, a machine vision algorithm needs to be working on it to make sure that it can make sense of it. And that's kind of trained over, for the past 10 years that we've been working on SLAM. It's quite integral to AR. Without SLAM, AR does not work in that kind of sense. So that's kind of like on the underpinnings of AR, but also in AR, what's important, especially for people out in the field, a lot of the requests we get is, hey, we need to be able to identify what an object is, right? If someone picks up, let's say they're working in an environment, in a machine environment, and they pick up a wrench, right? An machine vision object detection needs to know this is a wrench by just kind of showing it. And that requires a lot of AI to kind of figure out, or machine learning to figure out what object that is and whatever attached metadata to it, so that you can inform the user on how to use that wrench or what to do with it and all that stuff. So AI, in a sense, is very fundamental to AR success.
Thank you. All right, so let's keep digging in. AI is getting, in many aspects of our jobs, as you can see, and also in our lives, since that every day somebody comes up with a new application for machine intelligence, like face recognition and self-driving vehicles and recommendation engines and fraud detection, like Sky mentioned. One application that I've been following for a while is recruitment, and something that people don't think about too much, but anywhere from finding a better fit of candidates in the sea of resumes to making the first contact, or even making the first interview, and to eliminate biases and things like that is the recruitment industry is really looking into AI as a better way to recruit. I find this application very interesting. For you in the panel, is there a business application of AI that you find unique or surprising? And I'll start with you, Kris.
Yeah, so I would say I got like two that come to mind. One was very quickly is the idea of the machine making itself run more efficiently. And this has been around for a bit, but it's just how Google actually manages the data centers. They're utilizing AI to determine when the actual data center should be cooled and how it regulates the water that runs through the whole data center. It's actually interesting. Is like they showed how basically when they turn that AI off and how things actually cost of energy actually becomes less efficient and it rises, and when they turn the AI back on. So it's technically a machine taking care of machines. All the data centers full of different cloud or consumer data or hardware, and I always find that mind-boggling. And to have other companies, their interest get piqued in that. And they want to do the same is always surprising too. But of course, I would love to I love the idea of what I've been digging into or looking into is how AI combined with blockchain, and not necessarily the fintech side of things, but more of when it comes to healthcare. Nobody likes signing documents over and over every time you go into a healthcare system. But if you can store that in the blockchain technology and use AI from a visual standpoint to scan your face, and then it actually pulls your information up, almost know your customer type thing, and there your information is there. There's a lot of barriers, things that has to get to the point where API is the norm for healthcare industries to take advantage of that, but that definitely interests me.
That's interesting. The face recognition portion. I have an identical twin and haven't found an AI that can tell us apart.
Yes.
Okay, Elbert, what is an AI application that you find unique or surprising?
So a lot of people have been seeing the deepfake videos. And for those who don't know, deepfake videos are basically allowing an actor to be replaced, have their face replaced by someone else, and it kind of looks kind of weird and creepy for a lot of times. But as people kind of progress through doing these deepfakes, it's becoming more and more realistic and kind of confusing at times, especially when they morph between the original actor's face and the actor they're trying to overlay that face. It kind of this weird, creepy transition, but kind of looks natural after a while. So people tend to concentrate though on deepfakes as a bad thing, but I think what's important is to see the technology as something that's actually useful. So, for example, one thing that can benefit from deepfakes is being able to record yourself talking, for like say 5 minutes, and using that video that you just created and pairing it with other AI like speech synthesis to create a virtual avatar of you, not in a sense where it will replace you, but more, let's say you're creating a video tutorial. Let's say you paid an actor, instead of paying an actor 8 hours to say, 1,000 lines, you can pay that actor probably maybe same price or maybe a little bit cheaper to give out a line for like say 30 minutes and be able to extrapolate from there and really be able to scale that actor, right? That's one thing that with humans, it's hard to scale a human being, right? You can't just duplicate. Maybe you, Luis, you have a twin, you can scale you, but there's only two of you, right? But what if we can scale an actor to be, in a set over 100 different times, or be able to do video tutorials, in 100 different ways and reducing costs? So using deepfakes in that way, I think it's important to see that AI, or even AI in general, is not inherently evil, but a lot of people tend to think AI as Skynet or it will rule our lives. Yeah, it's very possible, right? But we also need to see the good things about that. So, that's something I kind of like to always remind people.
That's very cool. Sky, is there a business application of AI that you find unique and interesting?
I encountered, one thing jumps in mind. I encountered this one working for Darden, my previous employer. I can't disclose the details about this, but it has to do with weather data. And it's not Darden that's producing the weather data, obviously, they're purchasing it. And the salesperson was doing a pitch. And one of the things that triggered me was it's not necessarily the application of AI in predicting weather that's surprising. It's more of how much data and how many different points of data they're using to do it. And so I'll give you an example. So one of the points of data they're actually pulling in to make weather predictions more accurately, or wind chill factors and all that, is windshield wiper data. I did not even know that that data was being collected, for example. So some of you might know that some of the newer cars or luxury cars, they have this automatic windshield wiper thing going on. So that data is used in weather forecast, a more real time and more location based as well. So that was surprising to me when I first found that out.
I did not know about that one. That's really, really cool. That's really, really cool. So in your experience, there's also, as we have seen, the problems that we can solve now because we have the access to these algorithms. And so I wonder, within your field, is there a problem that you solve with AI that would have been impossible to solve without it? And so I'll start again with you, Kris.
I think it was a publication just recently just came out from one of our, I guess you would say, sister organization that falls underneath Alphabet. We call it Google AI, or some of us refer to it as Google Brain. They recently just disclosed of how they're using AI to actually aggressively find cancer. And sometimes this actually can take a while. It takes a lot of expertise, time, the knowledge of doctors. But if you can assist a doctor in such a way where it can identify a place or the actual problem, or where the focus on, it increases their time with that patient and also allowing them to see more individuals as well. So definitely take a Google search of that, where it's actually something that's related to AI and cancer. You can put Google AI cancer, it should pop up. But that is something that is exceptionally something I feel like wasn't as possible before, or it took a very long time to actually complete or discover. And there's, of course, a lot of research going into it. and it's just something that allows healthcare industries to increase their operational efficiency around artificial intelligence.
That's very cool. I read today that the finding the vaccine for COVID-19 is also being accelerated because of AI. They were able to create a digital twin of the virus, and then you can apply artificial intelligence methods to iterate faster in the compounds of the vaccine. And so I have read about the cancer. I actually did I was in a conference where a PhD in computer science were talking about how much now for the drug discovery they're using AI and machine learning, that now computer scientists are getting into the medical field or even into scientists without having necessarily a background, but also able to see the problem in a different way. And I use these algorithms to accelerate the process. Sky, is that a problem that you solve with AI that would have been impossible to solve without? Or a problem that you know?
Yes, I do know. There are tons and tons of these, especially within the financial services and banking industry. They grow, banking industry grows by acquisition of other banks. So a lot of times they don't take the time to really consolidate their systems, and there's a lot of duplications and manual work created. I mean, there's just so much manual work within the company that, so I'll give you one example. So there's this team of about 10 people or so that they're manually categorizing like millions and millions of rows of data on a monthly basis. And that's a very small portion of the data. And they can only do that, their reasoning being, it's not like, it's not like something that has a definite rule. Yeah, it's a case per case sort of thing. So in that case, you're processing through millions of rows of data and you're having this team of people doing it manually. The most logical choice is just use machine learning algorithms to say, well, like let's train the algorithms on the historical data of what has already been manually categorized, and seeing if there's a pattern in there, and then say that you can use AI to get part of the way there. So right now we have one of those automation processes that are about like 80% accuracy, which is already pretty good. So over time, the goal is to get to 100%, right? So this is an overtime thing. This, I would think, it would be very hard to do with anything else.
That's very cool. How about you, Elbert? Is there an application? Is there a problem that you know about that was solved with that AI that would have not been solved otherwise?
So, in my work, like I said earlier, like AR really relies on AI. Really, none of the systems that we use right now will work without it. It's just because the AI needs to learn about our chaotic world. Right? So when a computer system, when you think about it, computers rely on a lot of logic, a lot of kind of hard rules. Obviously, that's kind of changing now with Google's DeepMind and on all that stuff. But in a sense, computers are still like a pure environment. But every time you interface with the real world, it's a very chaotic place that only AI can really figure that out. So that's AR. And also, I do a lot of game development as well. And imagine playing a game with an enemy and not having AI. That would be a pretty boring game. I mean, we all just have puzzle games at that point, right? So it's like AI is just as old as video games as well, even for Pong, right? Pong is the first video game that was ever created, and they eventually made an AI paddle for it. So without AI, video games would be a very different kind of landscape at this moment.
Absolutely. All right, so there's the other side of AI, and I'm so glad that you brought up, Elbert, the case of the deepfakes, because that was my example. And recently, Disney Research showcased their algorithm for face swapping. So they did exactly what you were describing. They were able to take the face of an actor saying the lines and put it in the face of another actor saying the same lines, and which solves a lot of production problems, especially with a company like Disney. Once you have that actor in the studio, you no longer have him or have her being able to repeat that is very important, but it makes you think, well, if we get really good at this technology, then it can be used for all kinds of bad things as well. You can have, politicians say the wrong thing and, call wars, who knows? And CEOs tank the stock of their own companies, and that somebody faked them. So there's definitely some balance in there. And I'd love to know from you, is there an application of AI that makes you pause? And probably we shouldn't get in there. And I'll start with you, Sky.
Well, I'll go from a more practical standpoint. So in my area, I've been in the data science field for a while now. It's like about 8 years now. Earlier in my career, I was thinking about data science and AI as in some sort of a front end thing, right? So we're trying to make some sort of future predictions. We're trying to forecast, or we're trying to model and implement algorithms for some sort of predicted outcome. And as I progressed in my career, I found that there was actually a lot more AI in what you call back-end data. So this will be data engineering. So just to get the sheer amount of data that is generated and being collected, that's terabytes of data in across these large companies, just to get the data in a analyzable format, to get them in a right sense, or being categorized correctly, or having resolved all the data issues, requires so much AI that I had never encountered before. So that's the one thing that practically that I've encountered that really made me pause, and that's the field that I'm getting more into now. It's back-end data analysis.
Why does it make you pause?
It's just because I used to think that AI was only in all the front end fun things you get to do with data analysis, but there's actually a whole lot more that goes into the structure of it, rather than the front end. There's a lot more work to be done there.
Okay. Kris, is there an application for AI that makes you pause?
I guess we were talking a lot about deepfakes, and often individuals can perceive it as a negative thing. I brought up a good point, saying that it can actually have a lot of positive effects too. But certain technologies like that with the wrong agenda always makes me pause, especially if it's used political or in the news, things like that. And it can get very scary, especially during pandemic. The pandemic is that individuals will think that something's going on when it's not really, or a particular rule or something was announced and it wasn't that individual. It's just so many different ways that can be used in a negative way. And I throw out the fact that are companies and individuals using this technology, these algorithms, for bad data, or with bad data, or just for bad purposes? Do they have principles in place? And most of the major companies have what we call AI principles. You can do Microsoft AI principles. Google has theirs as well. And these are just things that really have to be taken in consideration when you consider AI, and one of its, can it cause harm, and in what ways can it cause harm? So I think that everyone should think about, no matter what application you actually do. Every time I engage with a customer, and AI is a continuous conversation, we have a committee that actually engages with that project to make sure that whatever they're interested in doing, there is a committee, a consensus on, does it follow these AI principles? It can affect our organization as Google if we're supplying them with some type of technology, and it can affect theirs as well. So every company, every individual who engage with this type of technology, AI, should take a pause.
Thank you. Elbert, is there an application of AI that makes you pause?
Actually, pretty much every application AI makes me pause, because you kind of see like, oh, good and then bad. So one thing, right, that we kind of see a lot in the news lately is the social media algorithms. Back when it first came out, it was very simple, right? You just saw the feed in a linear fashion. It's whenever newest to oldest, right? And then sometime a few years ago, we changed to a more curated feed, and a lot of that is a black box. And when you think about it, right, a lot of these social media companies, they are driven by profits, which is not bad in itself, but it's just that a lot of these decisions they are driven by how do we make more money, increase profit. But there is a side effect to that, right? For example, Facebook typically would want something more divisive. They might show that more on your feed because there's a lot of people engaging with a piece of content. And that's kind of driving a lot of how we consume and view the news. And that kind of gives you pause because it goes like, okay, well, what I see is actually controlled, which is something as old as time, right? For anything that's media related, someone or something is controlling behind it. But now instead of a person or a government, it's a set of algorithms and private companies. So we kind of have to have that balance, which kind of puts into its head having critical thinking is super important, even more so now because we have no idea or we have very little. It's easy to kind of attach to a headline and believe that's the news without having someone vetting it that we can trust. So having the critical skills, thinking skills, and doing your own research is even more important. So that kind of goes into how it spirals. As I kind of close this up, is that it's important what of developing the AI, but also developing ways to figure out, hey, is this generated by AI? What's the algorithm behind this? And understanding that in order for us to keep those critical thinking and really knowing where this news is coming from.
All right. So during our talk, we have been getting some interesting questions from the audience. So let's just start with that. I have a question here from Henderson Sanchez. It says, in a rating system from 1 to 10, how perfect would you say AI is in this current moment and why? I'll start with you, Elbert.
I'll give it 3, like 3 out of 10, because a lot of people, when they think about AI, it's like artificial general intelligence, where you're actually kind of like a human. And I think that's kind of a lot of goals for this thing. But I think AI is so new. We're still kind of figuring out how to use it. And for example, even for a developer like me, setting up how to do machine learning is actually a very arduous task that isn't straightforward. So until we get to a point where our parents or our cousins or sisters, whatever, brothers, can create their own machine learning thing by just pointing like this object, looking around, and making it more accessible, then we're still kind of far off with AI in that sense.
How about you, Sky? What do you rate AI today from 1 to 10?
Oh, I am between a 3 and a 2. I think there's a lot of storytelling in the entertainment industry about AI, but we're just not there yet. The only thing that we have, and I agree with Elbert, that we don't have general AI. We have just goal oriented, right? So it's like fake AI. So it's fake intelligence. It's like you always give it a goal, right? And then it's not like it can think about what its own goals are. That doesn't exist. So with that said, it has a lot of wide variety of industry uses. Is it where it's optimal? No, because I have the same problems where for me to train an algorithm and all that, I have to set up my own databases and all that, and nobody has like the perfect structure for data in any of the industries that I've been in in my past work history. So it's far from what people would consider real AI is. But the powering AI really comes from the amount of data that you're able to collect and go through and how fast it does. So it has a direct correlation. So the power of AI that we have right now is a direct correlation with how much processing power you have. So I think the data collection side is more of the power rather than the AI algorithms that we have in place right now.
How about you, Kris? What do you rate AI today from 1 to 10?
I hear, Albert with, I think he said 2, and then Sky said 3. I'm going to go 2.5, maybe right there in the middle. Yeah, it's an immature place in many places. A lot of the organizations, like a recent article with Apple, where they're inquiring other companies who are doing things with AI. It takes a lot of work, a lot of expertise, and it just for organizations just to do it on its own. But beyond that, each organization have to play a part to give out what are the boundaries, what are the best practices, and everybody's situation is going to be different. Every customer, every organization who is interested in AI is going to have a unique problem. So I don't even think it'll ever get to a point where it's perfect or it's 10. And I don't think anything, whether it's machining, computer, everything, I don't think it'll ever replace the actual role we play as human beings itself. It may come close to a certain extent, but it's very people think of it as some magical thing where the computer is thinking and all that, but it's kind of like what Sky said. It's like you're almost talking to a child, a computer where you got to constantly train it, and then it learns from past actions, things like that. And you got to feed it information. But this takes a lot of technology, hardware, and data. And as those things progress, like quantum computing and TPUs, then the technology and AI will actually increase, software increase. But I think we have a long way to go.
Very few people mention quantum technology, and but every once in a while it comes up with it here, which I think it will make a very big advancement in AI for sure, to have quantum computing. So for me, I actually graded much higher because I've been around it for so much longer. When I think about, feeding an algorithm for a full weekend, and to do something very simple to what we can do today, I actually having to create the algorithms themselves to having black boxes for algorithms, which is a really advanced, and also being able to put it into hardware, which is also very, very useful. So I would give them a 7. So, but it's depending how you look at it. So we have a question here from Sean Casey that talks a little bit about the hardware component. He says, I'd like to hear how the combination of AI and IoT makes a shift into cybersecurity. And I don't know if anybody wants to shipping into that. I imagine it has to do with the fact that now we have these machines that are listening all day long, and we're all working at home every single day, which means now houses and apartments are not as protected in terms of cybersecurity as offices are. So anyone wants to?
I'll take a first stab at it just briefly. Sure. So I mean, I think about those technologies, IoT. And it is actually pretty interesting they brought up security, because that's a huge thing. You're thinking about as with more devices, and we continue to increase with more devices. That means more data, but that also means more access, another entry point every time you create another type of device of how somebody can access your data, or basically potentially just how we interact with one another. And we barely safeguard small things where most individuals don't use MFA, multi-factor authentications. Everybody's still kind of just getting used to the SMS, two-factor authentication, where you get the little code and allows you to get into a site. But we're seeing more and more where individuals are actually getting hacked, and they call Verizon in replace of you and say, I want, this person's information. And then next minute you're losing funds somewhere or whatever. But getting to a place where there's similar technologies that can actually grow from AI is allowing these content delivery networks, these edge meshes, where they sit on the front edge to kind of detect, maybe in our fashion where we're using now, DDoS attacks, allowing those things to have some type of a smaller AI that's focused on security, detecting those things. And in order for it to get there, the technology has to get to more of a preemptive ops. And I had the opportunity of working in something like that previous for a short stint with Deloitte, is not just being reactive based on what you're doing after it's being done, or being proactive, but using predictive analytics to do preemptive acts, predicting it and actually telling you in recommendations of how to prevent it before it happens. And based on data that's coming in, real-time data. And what will accelerate that is hardware, of course, the 5G technology, and incorporated with IT or IoT devices, memory being able to be sufficient at a smaller scale to be on each of these devices, so it can actually store some type of machine learning algorithm and then those models being able to be accessed, so it won't be a black box, and knowing that someone's not doing something wrong on them.
We'll follow up a little bit on that. I want to see if Elbert or Sky want to add to that answer. Raise your hand. No. Okay. So I like the idea, that kind of panic button idea you talked about. There was an actual question about that, and which I'll read it, and then I'll structure for the panel. He said, "Is there a turn off emergency button that humans can press to stop AI if it ever gets out of control?" The question is interesting because no one button can control all the AI that's being implemented everywhere, but it does raise a good question. It's like, as customers, we should be able to control how our data is being used, and how somebody's analyzing our data. And even if it's for our own benefit, or perhaps it's not for our own benefit. So I think Kris talked a little bit about the principles of AI and things like that. So as you develop systems, and do you think about this thing? When is too much AI? Should the customer have a say into when do we stop analyzing the data? And I'll start with you, Elbert.
So, like you brought up a really good thing, right? Especially when you think about IoT or websites, right? Tracking cookies. And one thing that's kind of been on the forefront is GDPR, right? It's basically a set of privacy laws that Europe really has implemented that pretty much affects the whole world, because Europe is a big chunk of of users in the world. Basically allowing users to be able, in a nutshell, be able to control their data, telling companies like Facebook or Apple or Microsoft to say, hey, I want to delete my digital presence, and be able to have mechanisms to do that. So it's actually very important, and it's something that companies are taking seriously, because there are some hefty fines, and pretty much governments can pretty much tell you to shut down if you don't abide by that. So one good example is TikTok. Right? On TikTok, a lot of people say there's a lot of security issues with it, and doesn't really deal with your privacy for various reasons that I won't really get into in this panel. But and they get shut down, right? They got shut down in India, which is a big chunk of their user base, and they might get shut down in the United States, which is a big monetization pool for them. So companies are driven by this, being able to turn off AI or access to your data. But the problem is, right, we carry with us technically an IoT or edge devices, a cell phone on us at all times, which, as with all our conversations, right, is a double-edged thing, especially with AI. Even though it's anonymized data, it's literally, if you get enough inputs from various IoT devices, you can figure out who that is, right? So it's super important that we have control over our privacy and care about what data we give websites and other technologies.
Thank you, Elbert. Sky, do you want to add to that? Should customers should be able to stop AI?
Short answer would be yes, but that's complicated. Especially in the banking industry, we face a lot of privacy issues. I mean, when I be at Mellon because it's a GSIB. GSIB means globally systemic important bank. So if they go down, like Wall Street will have to shut down, for example. So you can't, there are some things that you are okay, I can say to you that you can tell them to shut down, but at what level, right? But there are, this is one area, the banking industry, especially a custody bank, asset custody bank. There's just so much regulations, and that we have to consider when we do this and we do that. Security is all we ever talk about, especially dealing with data. But with that said, there's still a lot of manual security things that are not very safe, right? So I can't comment on the specific of even if you have the perfect security system, there's no guarantee that one of your employees wouldn't, go rogue and go and sell some information. There's just no complete security anywhere. So for the customers to have the say to say, well, I want all my data deleted. That's a necessary step, but it's also complicated because data is everywhere, and even within our bank, we have problems figuring out where all the data, all the pieces of information we have on you is. So it's a very complex and not an easy answer to give.
Fair enough. Kris, what do you think? Should the customers be able to turn off AI?
Absolutely. I think customers should be able to. And if we're saying specifically AI in general, if they're using it in their organization, it can be difficult if they have integrated across their infrastructure, or say for instance healthcare across hospitals or their systems with their payer provider. Um, Especially in the healthcare industry, they cannot accelerate quickly as most industries, because there's lives at the end of an action in many cases. So you have to move at a certain pace that where you're not affecting the clinicians, the nurses, everyone at the hospital level, but even the people who are receiving the care. It's an entire ecosystem that you turn something off or you turn something on. It takes careful attention. So, of course, when you put things on the cloud, there is a button to destroy all your resources and close your account, type of thing. But it would take careful consideration. You can put things on pause. If there's something wrong, you could stop it and retrain your model. And I think that there are more and more technologies, things that even at Google we're creating to allow people to share information about what they're doing, as for allowing AI to be a little bit more explainable, and individuals who may not come from a data science background can interpret better. And even what if tools, if I do this, how would it affect my organization if I create this AI?
Yeah, it's very interesting answers. Like I kind of agree with Sky too. It's complicated, and the system that she was talking about too, that is all backend manipulation to make the front end work better. Customers aren't even aware that that's happening, right? One thing is to tell your Alexa, I don't want you to, I press this button and please stop analyzing me. Another thing is the bank or somebody, in the back end using the data, or for health and life sciences as well. So it is very complicated. But as any technology has advances, it has also his disadvantages. We are getting close to the end, and there's a couple of questions that I always like to ask our panelists. And because this is Tech Tuesday, so although we go to a particular topic, I'd like to expand on in technology in general. And so as for you in the panel, what do you see in technology today that gets you excited about the future? So I'll start with you, Kris.
Oh man, I just love technology, so it's so hard to put my mind or my brain on one focus. I would say the type of technology that can to help life, and allow us to detach from it, if that even makes sense, if that's possible. And people actually adhere to it. There's small things like that to remind you, hey, it's time to step away. You see more and more that individuals are implementing on their computer or their phones or smartphones that say you had too much screen time. I think that's extremely important because of the times we're living in. We keep saying we're in the new norm, and that's completely true. I don't think that we're ever going to go back to that normal, because now we will always have in the back of our mind that things can lock down, and how we access each other is completely different. But now we're forced to work, and majority of people are looking at screens all the time. And I feel like that's going to come out and be another health issue. So when technology can get to the point where it can help us detach from it, if that makes any sense, and allow us to take care of ourselves and others around us, that excites me. And being a part of the healthcare industry and trying to help people get to that place is good. And then even on the AI side, kind of what I mentioned before, it just went into beta, is explainable AI, allowing people to understand what's going on in that black box, and giving them tools to say, this is safe, this is not, and let's take a step back, let's pause before we go too far.
How about you, Sky? Is there anything in technology today that gets you excited about the future?
I actually have two views on that. I love technology as well. I think it's purely from an intellectual standpoint that a lot of the current technology they're developing, like say AWS or Microsoft, have these technologies where you can build your own AI without having too much background about all the maths. So that's dangerous, and it's also good at the same point. We're getting to the point where a lot more people, especially small businesses, can utilize the power of AI and power of data analytics for their own business, right? So that's an advantage that I see in these types of developing these types of technology that services the mass using AI. And the other thing is I'm always constantly concerned about data privacy and data collection and all that. I'm a very private person myself, and there's a lot of morality issues in association with the field that I'm in. But the flip side of that, what gets me excited is that there are organizations and teams out there that are working to use technologies like AI and advanced technologies to counter the privacy issues. So that's really what gets me excited about the future. Yeah, technology can be used to steal information and do all the bad things and control and all that, but you can, on the flip side, you can use it for good. So there's always two sides. I wouldn't be too pessimistic or too overly optimistic about AI future for now. But what gets me excited is there are people that are working on privacy issues using technology.
Well, that's good. How about you, Elbert? What's happening in technology today that gets you very excited about the future?
I'm excited that technology is becoming more human. As you know, Luis, right? When we first started programming, a lot of it's console, very archaic commands that we have to learn what the language of computer is, right? And now with how computer and technologies are kind of maturing, we have UX, the study of how users interact with systems and how do we present the flows that it's as human centric as possible rather than computer centric. It's important because right now, we have a big shortage of programmers. We have a big shortage of AI experts, even more so in machine learning, and that is causing us to not innovate as fast as we want, right? Because there is a big wall you have to kind of climb, and even so, it requires a certain kind of mental state and thinking to even get to that. So that's why we have, we're not filling out these jobs so much. But once we make, technology, programming, computers more human-centric, I think it really opens up to make it, like Sky said, smaller businesses being able to use AI and have a conversation. So that's amazing to me. So one great example of that, a lot of apps now are eschewing like the traditional like buttons, clicks, links. Now, like for example, Lemonade, it's like a new age kind of way to do.
You were mute. Go ahead.
Mute myself. There we go.
Okay.
Right, so Lemonade is an insurance app. It's a new company trying to change how it does it, right? And with Lemonade, you actually just chat with an AI bot. There is no like interface of signing up. There is no like forms. There's no 10 steps to do it. It's just a chat bot asking you questions, and you give it, and it parses it perfectly, which is amazing. Which is like, oh my God, this experience of signing up for renter's insurance is so much easier now. I think that is the future we're going. Obviously, there's going to be interfaces still for more like nuanced experiences, but the more we make it human friendly, the more it becomes accessible to people.
That's great. I like to add because you touch a little bit about that all of you have about the future, right? And if we could have one more round of questions, what I think is exciting about pursuing a career in technology. I mean, I've been in technology for a very long time, almost 40 years. As Kai said, the intellectual stimulation always has been there, and but the kind of problems that we've been solving over the years have really drastically changed. And today, if you were to enter the technology field today, you have an opportunity to really build on 50 years of plus of innovation and solve some very interesting problems, some very important problems. I think it's if anybody asks me about entering technology, I think it's the most exciting time to enter technology because you can really make a difference. And but since all of you guys have career in technology, what would you tell somebody to encourage them to pursue technology as a career? I'll start with you, Sky.
That's a really good question. I think the most important points to know is to know yourself, right? And to think outside the box. So knowing yourself, you have to know like what type of person are you, right? So are you more logical? Are you more creative? And what type of technology are you interested in? What do you see yourself doing in the future? Ask yourself these questions and get to know yourself. And also think outside the box. When people hear about technology or programming and they tend to think of like a programmer, a geek type of person sitting there and typing up everything. Well, it's not like that anymore. The technology landscape and the whole data, massive collection of data has changed the technology landscape drastically over just the past 10 years or so. So think outside the box. I would think that there is technology jobs and opportunities and innovations that fits almost everybody that has an interest in technology. So think outside the box. Think about what problems you would like to solve in the world, for example, and think about how you can get there. And there's always going to be a technology solution there, and there's no one way to solve any type of problem. And the application of technology, I mean, even just my industry is banking, and you wouldn't think that there's so much technology that needs to be done inside banking, but there is so much. So in every industry, technology is such a crucial thing. So I would think that technology would be one of the obvious fields to get into if you don't want your job automated in the future, which is one of the things that we're working on. But definitely pick a job that you're going to enjoy and think about how it is, what problems you want to solve, and think outside the box.
Thank you, Sky. How about you, Elbert? What would you tell somebody to encourage them to pursue a career in tech?
I would tell them, especially if they're in the younger age, like, if they're a teenager, I usually tell them, start learning now. You have the information at your fingertips, YouTube, Udemy, even Full Sail Labs, right? There's so many avenues for you to learn. And what's important is, as you're younger or learning out, is to see the different things out there. Don't try to decide on the moment what you want to be. You have to figure that out yourself. As Kai was saying, like, you have to know who you are. And sometimes a lot of that learning process is actually doing. So just kind of try different things. A lot of these tools are free. If you're into video games, yeah, sure, do technology in video games. Maybe you'll figure out, as you're kind of working on video games, hey, I actually like backends. Let me work on the server. So you can kind of transition that way. Oh, and then maybe it goes like, hey, maybe I don't like servers anymore. I want to do more VR or more AI. So that way, you let yourself explore technology, because technology is ever changing, right? Every few years, something new comes out, disrupts the whole industry. That's why, for me, Sky and Kris, we're always learning. We're always updating our skill sets. We're always trying to find what's the next big thing, because if you kind of stop learning, you become, a dinosaur, and you suddenly out of a job. So I think the continuous learning aspect is a pretty important thing for anyone.
All right, so Kris, you have the last word. What would you tell somebody to encourage them to enter a career in technology?
I think Scott and Albert, they said it. I guess I can sum it up in the sense of never being comfortable. And that was always my motto. It's funny, my wife, she teased me. I always said I wanted to work at a large company like Microsoft, Amazon, or even Google. And she smirked. She's like, yeah, so what's your other plan? So, but she never knew that how it actually would come and when it would come. And I didn't know either. I aimed for a large organization, and it came in pieces, and I wasn't always sure of what I wanted to do. And sometimes we place this on ourselves. We place a burden on ourselves and saying, I'm going to be this. But I think you should never be comfortable and allow yourself to be like a Lego set where it's different pieces to build something bigger. Be agile in a sense. I was working at NASA, and you would think out of college you work at NASA and you're like, I don't want to go anywhere. And my peers were like that. They didn't want to do anything else but where we were, and that's what they saw. And we've seen other individuals who stay there for years and always become comfortable. And that's a choice of theirs. But me, I always thought, what could be next after this? And I started to think outside the box. And I told them I was going to pursue a business intelligence degree at Full Sail Online. They're like, what in the world? I mean, this is just right when BI was just getting, there. Nobody really knew what it was. And I saw a vision that it led to data analytics, it led to data science, or it overlaps with a lot of those things. And I saw it as a launching pad for whatever that would be into my career, but I was going to go down that route. So when I was talking about Hadoop, nobody cared about it. And then at least in my circle, or BI, nobody cared about that as well. But it kept giving me more and more opportunities. And along the way, it's like being in the grocery store, start pulling more things in my basket before I decided to check out and go towards the opportunity that it gave me. I say be comfortable, be agile, and accept change.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank you, all of you, Elbert, Sky, and Kris, for taking time to do this. It's something we have learned through this different times, is the gift of time is one of the most precious you can give somebody. So I really appreciate your time. And I want everyone, invite everyone for our next Tech Tuesday, which will be on August 11th. And it will be about VR, AR, and MR, collectively known as XR, and how these technologies are extending our realities. That is in 2 weeks. And thank you very much, and goodbye.